Jill, you there? Yep, there you are. Hold on, I'm gonna put you on speaker and we'll start the meeting. Can you still hear me, Jill?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. The time is 7:02, and we will call the January 14th Budget Committee meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will. I'm going to do roll call first. Donna, could you start the roll call, please?
Donna Danis.
Karen Quinn.
Tim DeBrio.
Owen Friend Gray.
Michael Kelly.
Jeffrey Morrison.
Charlotte Fife.
Jillian.
Jill Eldridge.
And Jillian Eldridge, for those who can't hear, is calling in on the phone. She's traveling at the moment. So I will open the public meeting portion of this January 14th meeting. And I will start the public meeting by going through a summary of the current proposed budget, and then we will open the floor to public comment. In an effort to save everybody the nauseum of me reading line by line, I'm just going to read the departmental totals and the percent changes over last year. So we will start with the executive totals. 2025 recommendation is $252,240. That represents a 31.2% increase over last year's budget. I'll go to the town clerk total, which is $100,642, representing a 9.8% increase. The election totals is $18,530, which represents a 53.96% reduction from last year. Finance administration totals, $110,439.00, representing a 3.68 increase. Assessing totals at $57,850.00, representing a 53.25% increase. But as I'm looking at these numbers, that percentage doesn't actually make sense, because the budget tan is 20,000. So in that case, I think there's a broken something in the,
Yeah, the $20,000 reval is included in the 2024 budget.
yeah, but what's that percent increase? Because
Over 37,850.
over 37,850, excuse me, I see it now. Thank you very much. Apologies. Math's right, I just can't do it. Next department is legal totals, $30,001, which represents a flat budget from last year, 0% change. Administrative totals, $952,690.00, which represents a 0.23% increase. Planning board totals proposed for 25 is $47,611.00, represents a 9.61% increase over last year's budget. Zoning board totals, $550, increase of $150, which represents a 37.50% increase. Following along at home, we're now on page 5, and I would also like to make a mention at this point in time, for the folks that may be following along at home, the budget packet that we are all looking at here and that's being provided is also available on the website. So if you'd like to go to the town website, you can download the packet for this meeting and follow along with the numbers and the different figures that we have as well. So now, page 5, government building totals. $171,900.00, representing a 2.03% increase over last year. Insurance, $133,923.00, representing a 9.12% increase over last year. Page 6. Police totals, $890,610.00, representing a 3.33% increase. Fire department totals, $556,670.00, representing a decrease of 0.89% over last year. Building department totals of $61,110.00, representing a decrease of 0.39%. On to page 7. Emergency management totals, $4,167.00, representing a 2.58% increase. Highway totals, $876,510.00, representing a 4.78% increase. Roads total, which covers the shim seal coat line, not the warrant articles, as we'll discuss later. Proposed budget of $30,000. Represents an increase of $5,000 over last year, or 20% even. Page 8. Solid waste totals. $359,850.00, representing a 3.75% increase. Animal control total, increasing to $6,150, representing a 2.5% increase. General assistance total, $6,700. This is flat funded from last year, so 0% change. Social services total, $24,375.00. There is no percent total increase, as the budget was last year was 0, and was on an approved warrant article. So the increase total to the budget is $24,000, the operating budget, I should say, is $24,375, or the total. And then sheet, I'm flipping the wrong direction, 9 has the recreation total of $134,960.00, or 9.5% increase. These numbers, 10, funny splitting the pages there, that's on me. 10 has the library total at $221,500.00, representing a 5.88% increase from last year. Historic Society, $500.00, flat funded, or 0% change from last year. Page 11. Conservation total of $1,810.00, which represents a reduction in 2.69% to the conservation budget. And then the debt services total this year is 0, which represents a $13,253 and 0 cent reduction from last year, or 100% reduction from the previous year. The total recommended budget is $5,057,788.00. This represents an increase of $209,180.00, or 4.31% over last year's operating budget. And before we open to public comment, I would like to bring a few more numbers to bear, as that 4.31% can be a bit confusing with our tax cap, because that is not actually the percent increase to the amount to be raised by taxation, which is what our 4% tax cap is limited to. The local tax cap calculation sheet shows those numbers, and it shows how the operating budget from last year plus the approved warrant articles from last year give the baseline for the amount to be increased by taxation when revenues are deducted from that total. And with the proposed warrants that have been brought forward, by the Board of Selectmen, that number for tax cap purposes at this time, which I would like to also note doesn't include the petition warrant articles that we'll be reviewing tonight, is 3.81%, or 3.808%, is the current proposal with warrants to increase, for the total increase to be raised by taxation, which in dollars is $5,558.00. At this time, I will also go over the current, sorry for not having my paperwork in line, warrant articles as proposed by the selectmen and to be reviewed in their entirety tonight. Articles 1 will be election of officers, 2 through 6 will be zoning amendments on the upcoming ballot. So Article 7 starts with the operating budget of $5,057,788, which is what we just spoke of and reviewed, with an offsetting revenue of $2,473,897. 8 will be ambulance operations with an amount of $45,000 with an equivalent offsetting revenue of $45,000. The funding source will come from the ambulance special revolving fund. A proposal of $30,000 to add to the fire vehicle and SCBA capital fund, or capital trust fund, I believe. $10,000 to be added to the police technology equipment expendable trust fund. $285,000 for road reconstruction and maintenance. $464,000 with the offsetting revenue of $464,000 to be withdrawn from the capital reserve fund and unreserved fund balances for the purchase of a new grader. $70,000 to add to the highway vehicle capital reserve. $18,000 to add to the town building maintenance expendable trust fund. $10,000 to add to the invasive species expendable trust fund. And then $100,000 with an offsetting revenue of $100,000 from the Pawtuckaway Lake water, for Pawtuckaway Lake water quality, which the offsetting revenue will be provided by a Clean Water State Revolving Fund loan. So all of those items in those articles just mentioned is what totals up to the 3.8% increase to be raised by taxes in the current proposal if all warrant articles as noted are proposed. I will now also read the petition items which have not been reviewed or seen by the Board of Selectmen or Board of Budget Committee formally as of yet. There is a petition for item 17 to amend the local tax cap. There is a petition on Article 18 to accept Maple Ridge Road, no monetary impact. Local tax cap has no monetary impact as well. 19, censure Upton and Hatfield, no monetary impact. 20, Stevens Hill Road, reconstruction and maintenance, an appropriation of $120,000. 21, amend the local tax cap calculation, no monetary impact. 22, community newsletter, we're looking for an appropriation of $10,000. 23, modify disabled exemption, no monetary impact. And 24, modify elderly exemption criteria, no monetary impact. So in reading those numbers, in summary of what the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee have been reviewing, I will now open the floor to public comment. When you come up, please remember to state your name and address. We ask that you be clear and concise, and we will refrain from any form of discussions that do not pertain to this budget. And we would like to keep everything civil and amenable and agreeable. So with that, I'd like to see if there's any members from the public who wish to speak at this time.
Just one point of clarification.
Yes.
Sorry. On the tax cap calculation, is this being shared on the World Wide Web? The dollar amount proposed increase to be raised by taxation, I think there's a cell error in the math, because that's the difference between what our increase for the 4% tax cap is and what the proposed budget plus warrant articles less revenues are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
can you-
this number here, the $5,558.
Yep.
$58.
Is not,
That's not the right number.
That's not the right number.
It should be 3,006,891 minus the 2,896,586.
would you mind giving me that number?
$110,305.
110,305?
Correct.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Tim. Point of clarification, the total increase, I thought that was pretty incredible. Thank you for catching that. The total increase, just reading, I was like, that's amazing. Total increase to be raised by taxation from last year to this year is $110,305. Not the 5,558 as previously reported, but that still equates to 3.8% increase in the amount to be raised by taxation. So thank you for catching that, appreciate it. Back to public comment. And also just a reminder, sorry, before you get rolling, if you are here, can you please remember to sign in at the sign-in sheet at the front so that the meeting minutes can properly reflect your name and address.
Sure, and I signed that already.
Thank you much.
Linda Prashadny, 16 Camelot Court. So on page 2 of the budget, line number 4, merit compensation. Last year it was 0, and this year it's 50,000. What is the merit compensation? Is that for all town
Could you
employees?
say the line number again, John?
Line number 4, merit
Page one?
compensation, page 2.
Actually, on page 1 of the budget.
Yeah, oh.
Page 1 of the
okay,
budget
that's where we're
worksheet, but
confused.
yes, line
Yeah.
4, merit compensation. So the merit compensation pool applies to all town employees except for the police department. The police department within this budget carries their own merit compensations, which is in it's actually, it's in their salary line, now that I think about it. But yes, that covers all other, excuse me, town employees except for police department.
Okay, so what it's saying is that last year there was no merit
Correct.
for any
Default
town
budget.
Because on
employee?
the default budget, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then one other question for now. I don't know if the page is right, but I'm showing page 9,
Let's
And
see where you are.
lines 273 through 286, or the social services total.
Okay, so for some reason, the numbering on yours is a little off, but it would be ours on the packet we're looking at, but yes. Or 8, excuse me.
Line item.
But lines 273 to 286?
Yes.
Yes,
Social
correct.
services. So
Yep.
last year it was 0.
Correct.
Because these are charitable contributions that individual taxpayers, in my opinion, should pay, and not the town asking us to pay taxes. Every tax-paying citizen to pay taxes to support that.
Mm-hmm.
So help me understand why you added it back in this year.
The thought process with adding it in back this year is that it was a warrant article last year,
Yes.
and it passed with overwhelming support. Currently, I shouldn't say overwhelming, I'm sorry, I don't actually have the numbers in front of me, but it passed by a fairly wide margin to my recollection. And the thought process is as to whether that goes in as a warrant article or it goes within the operating budget that affects the tax cap in the same manner. And if these are year-to-year expenses, then within the operating budget is where they should traditionally lie. So our thought process on the board was to follow what the vote was last year, to have it as part of the budget, as the warrant article showed that the town supported it. But your point about requirement versus individual contributions is absolutely noted.
Okay. So personally, I think that should be a warrant article again, and not just assume that the taxpayers want it again this year. Because there's a lot of other expenses with the warrant articles that appears that that the costs are going up for the taxpayers. So that would be one thing that should be a vote and not an assumption, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Thomas McKevich, 2 Washington Lane. I have just a couple comments and questions. It does appear that error on this form here, this local tax cap calculation form, where it's listing $5,558 instead of the true number that's 110,000 and some. Just based on my math here, it looks like that 5,500 number, that would be the previous year's amount raised by taxation multiplied by the remaining 0.192% that is between the 4% tax cap and the 3.808 amount that is increased to the amount to be raised by taxation. Am I right about that? That sounds
Yeah,
like-
it was the line that was subtracted was, they just used the number.
Yep.
That we calculated for proposed versus what we had in the cap.
Yeah.
So I mean, it sounds to me like, this proposed budget that, I mean, I guess you guys can still make adjustments to it, it's not final, but you guys, you're putting in a budget that is, within 0.192% of the maximum budget that you guys are allowed to submit by law. And last year, when we submitted a budget that was a 4% increase, it got voted down. And the town got stuck with the default budget, which, we heard a lot of hemming and hawing about how stuff wasn't gonna get done, but I don't know, I thought the town's been going great this year. Everything seems to be well. But I'm just worried that, if you guys are gonna submit another, 3.808, that's, we can round that up to 4, you're submitting, the same increase again. Why do we not expect that it's gonna get voted down again and end up with a default budget? Did you guys consider maybe trying to come in at a 2% increase or something that the voters might go for? Because this sounds very dangerous, like we're just gonna end up with a default budget again. And maybe trying to pick a compromise between the default budget and the maximum amount that the law allows you to submit, which you're within $5,000 of. That to me would sound good, and I'm just wondering, I'm sure you guys spent a lot of the previous meetings debating lines, how much to spend on each particular line. So did you guys at least get some guidance to the Board of Selectmen, like how to spend money and allocate resources when the default budget is what we have to work with, and we don't get all this money in here? Because that seemed to kind of surprise the Board of Selectmen when they got the default budget, and there was a lot of scrambling. And I hope that some of the discussions that were done here kind of can benefit in prioritizing what to spend money on when you're stuck with the default budget because you turned in a 3.808% increase. Also, do you guys have the full revenues and anticipated revenues? This one that was provided to us is like half a page, and it doesn't have the usual line items that I'm used to seeing from budget documents.
I'm not certain if they are within this particular packet. It does not appear that they are, but we have reviewed the revenues as part of our regular budget meetings.
Because I know there was kind of issues last year with donations, that one-time donations that had been made that were then carried through into anticipated revenues. And with what we're provided here, I'm not really given a detailed enough breakdown to make sure that that's not happening again, and we're not putting, $10,000 into estimated revenues for 2025 based on donations that we got in 2024 that might be one-time donations.
Is there a question in there, or is that just a
Well,
statement?
the question is, I don't have enough information here to understand that things are being done correctly.
Again, that's not a question. Is there a question? You're welcome to make
The
a statement.
question
What you're
was,
asking, I
do you
believe-
have available for members of the public the actual line items from the revenues and the estimated revenues?
Tonight, no.
Available tonight. Are they available online now?
I checked online, I wasn't able to find them.
They're online, but I can make them available, I can email you a copy of them.
Well, that doesn't help after tonight when the thing's finalized. Might be it.
I would like to say that fortunately, the Board of Selectmen, Town Administrator, and the Budget Committee have all reviewed those items as well. And there are no issues with them currently, but we're happy to provide you a copy if you'd like.
Oh, there were issues with them last year that I had to catch, so
But
that's
this
why
is
I
a
wanted to
different
check
year.
them over.
This is a different year. I would like to reply if I think there was a couple
Hold
of
on,
questions
Charlotte.
in there.
Yeah, you need, I'm
Sorry.
gonna be procedurally heavy in this just because we actually have a public meeting with public. You need to ask me permission and then yes.
May I reply to Mr.
Yes.
Buchanan?
Sorry.
I think one of your questions, Tom, was what did we figure and why did we go up so close to the 4% rather than coming way down and to the, 2%? And our feeling was that some of the feedback that we've gotten from taxpayers and voters is that people have realized that we've had, for instance, open positions because we don't pay a comparable salary in very important departments like fire and police. And we haven't been able to hire and keep a full complement of people. And, I don't need to debate you about it. You just asked if we, what had made us think about these things. So that, I'm just speaking as one individual budget member, that my input was that a lot of the feedback that I got from voters was that they realize that we have to provide salaries and merit compensation in order to fund those important positions.
Right, well, with all due respect,
Bakavich,
you
you
did
need to
receive
direct your
feedback from the
comments
voters in
through
the
the
form of them
chairman.
voting down the budget.
Mr.
last
sorry, I
Bakavich,
can't
you
hear
need
you.
to have a seat.
Sorry, can't hear you.
I would like to point out for clarity that all comments and questions need to be directed through the chairperson, and if they are not, you'll be asked to be removed from the meeting. Mr. Bakavich, please have a seat. There are other members of the public who have yet to have a chance to speak. Once they have their chance, you are welcome to come up and ask more questions or make more clarifying statements. Are there any other members of the public who wish to speak at this time? Mr. Bakavich, if you have any further questions, you're welcome to come up.
As I said, with all due respect, you talk about feedback.
Bakavich, it needs to be directed through the chairperson. We
Owen.
are not going to have personal
Owen,
attacks.
with all due
We are not
respect.
going to have personal
Are you done?
diatribes, and we will be civil, and we will have decorum.
Are you ready to receive my feedback?
You're welcome to speak.
with all due respect, Mrs. Fife over here talks about receiving feedback from the voters.
There will not be personal attacks. We will.
How
not
do I
call
say
out
what I
our
want to
members.
say
Figure
with
it
your
out.
little rules?
They're not little rules. These are rules that we've adopted as a board. These follow the basic Roberts rules as defined and within our new bylaws.
This is why
I
people
will
from the
ask
public
you
are afraid to
respect them.
participate, because you pull crap like this. Anyways,
Again, personal attack. I'm going to ask you to have to be seated.
I refuse.
You're not allowed to refuse, Mr. Bukavich. This
This
is
is
my
a public
meeting,
hearing and I
am
have
the
freedom of
chairperson.
speech.
This is not a freedom of speech issue if you are not willing and able to follow the rules and civil decorum. We will not call people out by name, as I previously mentioned. We will not get to arguments and a state of discourse. We will have a civil and productive conversation. You may be seated.
I would like to finish my statement.
No, you have lost that right because
I have
you
not lost my right to
refused
freedom of
to
speech.
follow what I am saying. If you do not be seated, I will have to call the police officers in to ask you.
Are you the
to
chair of
have a
this?
seat. Yes,
Eddie?
Tom, I am the chair.
You're a disgrace.
Are there any other comments from the public?
Linda Brashadney, once again. So on, I'm not sure which page it is.
No worries. We'll help you out.
On mine
Give
it's
us a
4,
line
but
number.
on yours it might be
I
3.
think it's probably
Give it a minute.
3, but let us get half a
We'll get
second
there,
to
then
get
that way we
there.
can follow it.
Okay.
What, number?
It's legal totals, line 71 and 72.
Yep, 71, 72, got it? Yep.
Gotcha.
Okay, so in 2024, the budget, and 2025, I guess 2024, the budget was 30,000, and we spent 53,000.
Yep.
We're putting the budget for 2025 back at 30,000. So do you feel that's an adequate amount based on what might be carrying over from 2024 into 2025 and any new 2025 issues?
So we actually asked the exact same question, and what we discussed with the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator at the time was that based on what is on the docket in front of us at this time, and unfortunately that was a few weeks ago, but that the 30,000 roughly carried with where things had been in the past, which annually had been somewhere, I think we had seen from about 20 to 40,000. Last year, obviously with a large civil suit, it was much increased, but the thought was that at the time, with the knowledge base that we have, the 30,000 is sufficient.
Okay, so the civil suit that took place last year, based on what's been posted on websites, is that it could continue into 2025. There was a demand letter that I saw online that said something, and with a dollar amount that wouldn't be legal fees, it would be something else, I assume. If that's not met, then there may be another legal issue you've got this year. So how,
Potentially, but I would say there's always possibly another legal issue. Anybody can file something to that extent at any
Right.
given time. The Budget Committee has not been directed or been informed that this is going forward in one direction or another.
Right.
So at this point in time, it would be purely speculative of us. So it's something actually that I plan on discussing tonight after we close the public hearing and go to finalize this. I'm going to be looking for some more input from the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen, hopefully pending on where things stand from a legal standpoint of what can be said in public meetings or not. But I understand your concern. I likely have seen some of the same posts you're referencing. It's a question mark in my mind as well, but not something that until, I don't know, maybe just a few days ago, I was really aware of. So it is something we're going to be looking at, and hopefully we can get answered tonight.
okay, because last year with the 30,000, I had asked the questions, do you feel that it was enough for 2024? And you still, I mean, I know it was a default budget, posted it at 30,000, and it came in at 53, so I just would rather see you not have to deal with that again by increasing this budget this year, so that you're not taking from some other department that may need the money
Yep.
to cover for that. Just a thought.
No, fully understand and appreciate the thought.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public wish to speak at this time? With that, I will close the public hearing.
Before you close it, I have a
Too
question.
late. Yep, I understand your point. I'm going to remind you that the questions will not be attacking. They will not be attacking individual members on the committee. They will be civil, and they will be polite. If they are not, Tom, I will ask you to be removed, and you will be removed from this meeting.
Thomas Bukevich, 2 Washington Lane. Line 71, town attorney, is that our legal budget?
Outside of the, oh, no, yes, it is, the $30,001, yes, that is the current legal totals number.
Did the budget committee consider that to be a sufficient amount to allocate for legal expenses?
So, just had that discussion with the previous person who came up, asked the exact same question. At the time, when we reviewed this, we felt it was. It is a point that we are going to have a discussion in tonight while we finalize the budget.
If you're found that you've violated freedom of speech, are you held personally liable, or is the town held liable for that?
I'm not a lawyer, I can't answer that question.
All right, thank you.
If there are no further comments from the public, I'll close the public meeting at this time. Take a vote to close the public meeting. Yes, it does take a vote, correct? Okay, so at that point, motion by Tim DeVrio, second by Donna Danis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you, Jill. Ayes have it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to 1, or 8 to none, excuse me. With that, public hearing is closed. Point of order that I missed earlier, I forgot to mention that Bob Kelly, Danielle Roy, and Sandra Jones are all excused this evening. Sounds like the illness bug is getting the town pretty hard, so hopefully everybody recovers and does well. With that, I will open up the meeting to discussion of either the budget, the proposed warrant articles, or the, was it petitioned? Is that the differential? Excuse me. I don't have it in front of me. The petitioned warrant articles.
I have a question before if we move into warrant articles, but
Yep.
what I was a little confused on was when you were giving your report earlier, there were some warrant articles that it seemed to work towards a 3.8% number, and then it seemed like there was a few articles that didn't or came in after.
On the petition?
Yes.
Yes, so none of the petition numbers have been calculated in that 3.8.
Are those numbers going to affect our
But there's only two of
budgetary
them,
numbers?
right?
There's two of them.
Yep.
One of them was fairly, so there's one number for 120,000
Yep.
and another for 10,000. How does that
So.
affect the rest of our numbers?
So at least for the state of the 120,000, I can at least speak to that and hopefully try to provide some clarity on that one. The Stevens Hill Road reconstruction and maintenance, which actually I should read to make sure I'm fully understanding what is in that warrant. It's just reconstruction and maintenance on Stevens Hill Road from Deerfield to the existing pavement. That's non-lapsing, so that would be adding asphalt from Stevens Hill Road, from where the pavement is on Stevens Hill to Deerfield Road. If I'm not mistaken, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that that exact area and cost is already included in warrant article 11. which has Lucas Pond, Stevens Hill, and Deerfield included in that 285 number.
So is this a repeat?
So my understanding, and please correct me, anybody if I'm wrong, Ellen, please speak out if I'm out
The
of turn
petitioner
here.
here.
I don't know. Do we know who petitioned?
I think if the petitioner was here.
They could
Yeah.
explain, but
Yeah.
somebody on that road.
Somebody on
that's
that
a
road.
Good point.
I don't know who the petitioner is.
Okay.
This is the first person that's-
So I'm not seeing anybody from the public raising their hand, so I would assume the petitioner is not here.
But your understanding is that it's redundant
Yes.
to number 11, so
Yes.
it's going, if number 11 passes, it's on that list anyway.
Yes. Yeah, because if you look at number 11, it talks about Lucas Pond, Stevens Hill, and Deerfield. And Tim, please correct me if I'm wrong, or Ellen, but that is the section that we are talking about in this description.
Okay.
So it is redundant with 11.
Do we have any idea if the petitioner understood that?
Would it make, another question, would it make sense in the wording of Article 11 to decipher that, or
Per se.
if we feel it is? I think-
Yeah,
Then if Article 11 passes, then Article 20 is unnecessary, something along those lines, or?
Can we change the language of a petition warrant article at this point?
probably not a petition, but can we change
No, but we-
At the
a,
deliberative session?
I would say we would be able to change
the
11.
deliberative
The
we can, that's a good
deliberative
point.
session.
Yeah.
Can we change the language of number 11?
Yes.
So,
Do you want me to conference with you?
Yes, please,
Yeah,
Ellen, if you
thank
wouldn't
you.
mind.
So in terms of changing any of the language within the warrant, the proposed warrant articles that the selectmen and the budget committee have reviewed, those still need to be finalized. Obviously, your goal tonight is to put recommendations to those, and then the Board of Selectmen will be doing the same on January 27th. So that's when we have to post the town warrant. So we need to finalize that language. Right now, everything's in draft form. It's being reviewed by legal to make sure that everything's copacetic there and that it's a legal appropriation. So yes, the language can be changed.
so it sounds like maybe we could add some wording, something effective like, since there's overlap, if, one article passes, it'll reduce the cost of the other.
Correct.
Something does.
Boy, is that confusing.
So,
Ooh,
but
yeah,
It
it
is
is confusing, yeah.
My
the
suggestion
difficult,
is, like Article 11, you've got a couple of roads listed with commas in between, and you have a petition warrant that spells it out a little bit better. Or a little more specific, maybe we could take some of the language from the petition, add it to Article 11.
Yep, I think we could do that. I would also recommend at this point that the Budget Committee, when we take our votes tonight, vote unanimously against that article. And then there might be a point of order that I'm missing here, because I just saw a hand, but I'll finish my thought and then ask the Board of Selectmen Chair to come up. But at the deliberative session, try to make it very clear, and then perhaps at the deliberative session, see if the petition warrant article can be adjusted or changed or eliminated based on either the petition or a town vote.
Because that's
At that
affecting
point.
the rest of our numbers by
Yeah.
$120,000.
If we recommend it.
Yeah.
If we don't recommend it, then it's not factored into the calculation.
Correct. So
Because
the
it's
Budget
4%
Committee,
recommended by the
Yes.
budget committee.
yes.
See.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thanks, Ellen. But then do we have the same, it's much smaller proportionally, but the same idea with number 22, the newsletter?
Yeah,
That
we're-
10,000 has to be part of our entire calculation.
Correct.
If the budget.
If the Budget Committee recommends it, then
We're gonna have to
the
adjust that somewhere else on our
Do you
budget.
know where that
Or-
would put us at?
the
the
3.8
newsletter.
number goes up to 3.8 something, I don't know what it is, but I believe
Sounds
the,
like we only have $5,000 of wiggle room. Is that
Right,
what I
it's-
understood, Tim?
Yes.
was it 5,000 a wiggle?
We have
Okay.
$5,558 of wiggle room.
So yes, to your point, we would then, you're right, either need to reduce, to find enough in the budget for it or not recommend it, one of the two.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to clarify, with that warrant article for the roads, the one the select board proposed, it specifically has those 3 roads, and we have a quote for the cost, and it came exactly up to $285,000 number. And I will say the number for the Deerfield Road warrant article is $120,000, and the quote we have is $102,000. So,
My question would be, like, on Article 11 in the wording, if the select board has a quote for it, would it just make sense to add additional wording to Article 11 rather than
I
let
think-
it
yeah.
go to deliberative and it's at the last minute and
Well,
you've got
I think
100
to
or
your
so
point-
people where it's trying to be explained?
Yeah, I think to your point, I think it would be beneficial at this point to add clarifying language to Article 11,
Yeah.
vote down Article 20 at this point, and then, or vote to not recommend, excuse me, say that right, vote to not recommend it tonight, and then make it be known why the thought and the reason behind that was at deliberative.
It would be interesting if the petitioner was here so that we can understand if we're really looking at apples to apples.
Yes.
Like what you guys are planning, is that really what they're thinking? Or is there some
Or is
discrepancy?
there something else, yeah?
It seems to roughly be with the numbers roughly aligning and the limits aligning, but I'm not certain. The Board of Selectmen Chair is here and appears to have possibly some clarifying comments to make to help illuminate this.
of the warrant article.
Could you
Come to the
come up to the,
microphone
yeah. for
John
the
Warren.
Folks at home.
When you read warrant article 11, you have, and again, it's how you interpret this, right? You have road reconstruction and maintenance work on town roads to include, but not limited to, Lucas Pond, Stevens Hill, Deerfield Road. So we're mentioning the roads that we'd like to do the work on. Here's your other part in there. It says, if a priority arises, that money could be spent somewhere else and Stevens Hill does not get fixed. The petition article of the 120 is dedicating 120 to Stevens Hill Road only,
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
okay? I didn't write the article, doesn't matter to me. But so if that vote passes, the town is going to spend $120,000 on Stevens Hill. That's it. So when you look at how you read this, if something else, if one of our town bridges go, or if we have a flood and it takes out one of our town road, Stevens Hill might not get done, because that $285,000 might go to reconstruct a road due to a flood we might have this spring.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Because
if-
there is no line item in the highway department in the budget for road construction.
Right.
So just be aware, before you vote 0 and vote it down and not approve, think of the scenarios that could be there.
Yep, no, fully understood. Thank you for the clarification.
Fine.
Any other questions on warrant article items?
I guess this would be for you, Ellen, is where you've highlighted majority or 3/5 vote required for the tax cap ones, is there clarification on which one? Is it 3/5 or majority? Or are you waiting for clarification?
I'm actually looking at the legal review right now.
So we'll get back to you in a few minutes, let you read
Just
that.
a question, because it was highlighted.
Anything else that folks have on? Oh, you're good now? Okay, yeah, feel free to come up, thank you.
Well, I mean, those really don't matter to us.
No, I just, inquiring minds, yeah, I do want to know, there's a big difference.
Inspiring minds.
So RSA 32:5C states that the adoption of any provisions to 32:5B, which is the adoption of the local tax cap, must be done by a 3/5 majority vote.
Okay, so the two tax cap
Petition warrant
articles,
articles.
17 and, what was the other one, 21? Yes, okay, so those require the 3/5. So it's highlighted in our packet as a question mark, but it sounds like we hot off the presses, got legal review, so it is 3/5. actually, I'm kind of thinking now as I'm reading through these real quickly, with the petition items being new to us as of now, would folks like to go through those quickly and talk about them, maybe article by article as they are new, or are folks comfortable with what they see in front of them?
I'm comfortable.
Okay,
I'm comfortable.
okay.
Well, I'd like to ask for some clarification or background on Article 21.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jillian, just in case you're not getting picked up by the microphones, I'm going to be repeating what you say. Just a heads up, expect that. But please continue.
I mean, that's it. I would just like to better understand that article, and it seems like it's asking to adopt a calculation that's written in state RSA, so it begs me to wonder where we came up with the current calculation that we have, and what the background is on the difference, and whether there's a recommendation from the town administrator on this topic.
Okay, absolutely. So the question from Jillian Eldridge on the phone is on Article 21, noting that the calculation appears to be the RSA calculation, that there is a differential from the current town percentage-based, which is a fixed percentage, and also if the town administrator has an opinion on the difference one way or the other. I will say, in reading RSA 32.5 more times than I care to admit, there are basically a couple different ways that these can be calculated annually, or, well, I shouldn't say calculated, that a tax rate can be determined on a year-to-year basis. It can either be through a calculation based on what you see in front of you, which has bases to cost indexes, populations, factored into the base number. It can be a fixed percentage. I'm trying to do this off the top of my head, but I believe there is one other way to just fix it to a dollar amount. Is that the other one? Do you have it in front of you?
No, I read through it.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then dollar amount, I was thinking there was three ways that it can be calculated. Right now, the vote that's in front of the town that will be going to the ballot would be to change it essentially from the fixed percentage to a variable percentage based on population and municipal cost index, which isn't a cost index that I happen to know, but I'm sure it's similar to the other 100 different CPI numbers that are out there that attempt to measure inflation on an annual basis. Ellen?
Can I ask a question? Is this a new update to the RSA?
Yes.
Okay, so that's probably why we didn't use this when we first had the tax cap, because this wasn't part of the approach at the time,
Well,
right?
yeah, to that end, yeah, it couldn't be. It
I
just
believe it
wasn't
was
part
this
of it.
past fall.
Yeah, I
roughly.
think it's
Yeah,
it's
exactly,
new.
exactly.
Yep. And Jill, just in case you couldn't hear, Ellen was in agreement with all the statements that we've made. Does that answer your question?
It does. Mostly, I'm wondering if Ellen has a recommendation on which method she thinks would best serve the town.
So Ellen, the question is, do you have a recommendation on which method might best serve the town?
I think ultimately it's the will of the voters, how they would like to see it calculated. We'll calculate it however. This does give a little bit of fluctuation from year to year. If we're talking about inflation and population growth, which is apparent, then this would be more ideal, rather than just working off a fixed percentage year after year. And then having that fixed percentage also have the potential risk of being calculated off a default budget, which is already short from the goal.
I would think if we have three different ways of doing it, phrasing it as best serving the town is very, very open to interpretation.
Yeah, no, understood. I think it's probably, on some years it may, and some years it may not, based on different people's interpretation, but.
I looked at the municipal cost index, and over the last few years, it's fluctuated between 8% and 1%. I think 2022 is when it went up to 8%. And it doesn't necessarily reflect our small town. I mean, it takes into consideration much larger towns that have a lot more expenses, so, I don't know.
So, Jill, I'm not sure if you heard that, but basically, it seems to sort of be situational and personally dependent, and Ellen didn't have a recommendation necessarily one way or the other.
Yes, I received all that. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Any other items that folks would like to look at, dive into?
I'd like to give you a comment question on article number 18.
18.
As the residents of Maple Ridge Road formally request for this petition to the town of Nottingham, acceptance of Maple Ridge Road has been developed to town standards, been approved by the town's engineering firm. With this acceptance, the ownership of this road will be transferred to the town of Nottingham by citizen petition, majority vote required. I think it said somewhere that this had no financial impact, non-monetary. I don't agree with that. We've seen over and over with the acceptance of new roads, it has a significant monetary impact to the town.
Well, I guess the point of the no monetary impact is that there is no impact to accept the road. Long-term maintenance, I do agree, is absolutely an impact. But that would have to be managed within the approved budget. So I think probably the no monetary impact means there's no direct impact
To
to.
accept it, but the
Yes.
long-term monetary impact is
Yeah, I understand your
not stated
concerns.
in this.
Yes.
Then the
Yes.
voters would vote on that in the future if there was a warrant article to repave the road in 15 years.
Hasn't this hit before?
Yes,
was on last
yeah, it was
year.
last year, yeah.
Failed, yeah.
And the budget committee did not vote on. Yeah.
No, and I believe last year, if I remember the discussions at the deliberative correctly, there was questions as to whether it had been accepted and approved
Yeah.
by the town, which, in the way that this is written, it sure sounds like it, been approved by the town's engineering firm, which would make me think that it has. I'm assuming you can verify that, Ellen?
John?
Yeah, no worries, John.
You gotta come up to the mic though, John.
I'm not just gonna let you yell at me, John. I know you really wanna.
It's good exercise.
If, John Warren, if the bond that's held by the town for any new construction has been released in back, it's been approved by the town. Now it's just whether we plow it or not. That's all it's basically asking us to do. The town takes a bond against any of these new projects that come in, and that bond, it does not, the company, whoever's doing the development, puts up the bond, and when that project is complete, CMA goes, reviews, says it was built to the town specs, it meets all the criteria, we release the bond and give the money back to the builder that he put up to ensure that it was gonna meet the qualities.
Has that step occurred?
I have to go ask, you know, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's been this long, I'm sure it probably has been released. And then this process right here of getting it approved is something the town's been doing for, I don't know, years on years, that any new development came through and they've always petitioned to get it done.
Yep.
So, the town's under no liability except for really plowing the road is what we're doing, because there shouldn't be any maintenance on it, because it's a brand-new constructed road to the town quality. Now, 15 years, we might have to pave it, but that's, it is what it is, but right now it's being privately plowed.
Yeah.
And not by the town, so I'm sure those residents would like to see it, be put on the route to get done, to make sure it does get done, so.
Understood.
Maybe just for the town meeting, if you bring that, I'm just guessing somebody's gonna wanna know that it's been stamped or certified, whatever
Ellen, is that
is.
something that you can get before the town meeting?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, just make sure the bond's been released.
Yeah,
I think
just,
the petitioner last year actually came up and said that
Yeah.
in the deliberative session.
Okay.
These words were added this year into their petition warrant article. They weren't there last year, and nobody came up with them.
Question I have, the last two, Articles 23 and 24, cite specific exemptions based on the RSAs, and I haven't had time to review the RSAs yet. The numbers start at the same number, 121,000. I don't know if that is coincidental. There's also 58,000 that repeats, 245 that
RSA.
repeats. That's my question. Okay, so this is for more or less a quick summary, updating our rules to match the current RSA?
Yeah, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Ellen, but when I read through it, but it was like a month ago, it's within the guidelines of the current RSA of New Hampshire. It just increases the eligibility.
Okay. Do you know what it increases it from? Was the number slightly less before?
It was.
Yeah, okay. Any chance you happen to know that? I know I'm digging. I know I'm digging.
It was a month ago when it.
Do you have it, Ellen?
At present, right now, the elderly exemption is $101,000.
Okay, so roughly a 20% increase.
Yes, and it's moving it up to 121,000, I believe. I'm just looking at our current criteria. I think the income has also increased. It was 38,000 for single and 48,000 if married. So that's been increased to 46,000 for single and 58,000 if married for both. So the RSA sets the criteria, the base criteria, and then the town can adopt whatever criteria it sees fit to meet the asset and income levels, as well as the amount of the exemption.
Okay, so it's not necessarily that the RSA has a bracketed number. It
Correct.
shall be between this and this. It's more, we recommend it at 50% of the poverty line or some criteria to that extent. I'm sure I'm not using the right criteria at all, but how quickly
can
can you
pull up the
Google?
RSA.
I was about to say, how quickly can you Google RSA 72?
Let's see, RSA 7239. The amount determined by the city or town shall not be less than 35,000. That is for the assets.
So it has,
Okay, under no circumstances shall the amount determined by the city or town be less than 13,400 for single, 20,400 for married. That's the income amount. And then it does not specify the exemption amount that I see.
okay, so it seems to be setting minimums,
Yes.
but not necessarily recommendations or brackets or anything like that.
Correct.
But not tied to the poverty guidelines or anything.
Or, yeah, no other sort of metric,
Yeah,
just a not underneath.
Yeah, the only other requirement is just the minimum residency requirements.
Okay,
And there is a difference between the disabled and the elderly exemption,
yep,
3 to 5 years.
understood.
Okay.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. This is kind of dodgy because public comment is closed. So do you have a point of clarification based on those two warrant articles, or?
Yeah, not those two, but some of the previous ones that have been discussed, the tax cap one.
Were you a petitioner?
No. We didn't discuss these in the public portion, that's why I'm wondering if we can
It's fair.
Okay,
comment at this point.
understood.
I like it.
Sure.
Let me just do something because we closed the tax, or the public comment session. I would need a motion from the board to reopen this to public comment for a section we did not previously discuss.
So moved.
I
Moved
second.
by Mike, second by Charlotte. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, Jill.
Thank you very much.
8-0, appreciate it.
Limiting this just to the warrant articles for this open public discussion?
It's not what I voted on.
It is, but just clarification.
Understood. That was my intent at the time, but not necessarily what I said.
I'm sorry you had to go through, Skip Severn's 340 Stage Road. I'm sorry you
Thank
had
you,
to go
Skip.
through all that.
No worries.
On Article 21, which is one of the tax cap things, I'm racking my brain trying to figure out how we get this year's population.
I was wondering the same thing.
We don't do that. That I'm aware of. Census does it, kinda, but that's every 5 years or 10 years, depending upon how you do it, so. That's it.
Yeah. It's a good point.
Could you go count? Could you
You're
go
gonna
around
shake a
count?
lot of hands, Skip.
I'll try and go around, but
Hey, you got
Appreciate
20
you.
right here.
Honduras, yeah.
With that, I'd entertain a motion to close public comment.
So moved.
Moved by Donna, second by Karen. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes 8-0. Thank you, Jill. Thank you for the comment, Skip. That's a good point and slightly more discussion. Yes, how do you come up with this year's population? I'm not sure how you possibly would do that. That's a really good question.
Hopefully the petitioner will be at the deliberative session and can explain.
That would be helpful. I believe it's almost verbatim out of the RSA though. So my
Yeah,
question
it
is
is, but-
what's the intent of the RSA, which probably means it was written without fully vetting it, understanding it. I know, who would have done that, right? So, will be an interesting discussion at deliberative, and it's definitely something to kind of keep an eye on, but how would that possibly be calculated? It's a great point.
Yep.
I guess that's everything I had. Anything else, anybody? Sorry, I didn't look this way. No, looks like we're good. So I guess at this point, I'll open the discussion to, the concept of looking at least first, the, budget as recommended, if anybody has anything else that they want to amend or any recommendations based on the public comment. To that end, I'll start with saying that the legal fees is definitely something that I think warrants a brief discussion from us at this point, if not a lengthy discussion, but whatever we do. I think there's always a fear and concern of litigation. I don't know what the validity of this current litigation is. There's been some, Facebook speculation and whatnot that it's not something I don't think we should necessarily become a part of. However, I guess maybe my question to our Board of Selectmen representative or Ellen would be that the previous thought was that the 30,000 was roughly ample for any year of sort of average level of legal fees, services required. Has anything come to light recently or been brought to your attention that changes perhaps that average number would be sufficient? Do you think increased funds might be warranted at this time?
We didn't think so. We had our meeting, was it last Monday, the Monday before? I can't remember now. And yeah, I mean, if push comes to shove, we'll have to obviously move something within the lines
Yeah.
to come up with the money.
Which is always within your
But
purview, absolutely.
Based upon what we currently know,
Yeah.
we think that it's still in line.
Okay. Appreciate that. Charlotte,
Good
yeah?
question. We're going with a new law firm. Is there any change in the schedule of fees? Oh, pretty much the same, so that makes me
And it's
feel
not
more
a
comfortable
contract
too.
either,
Right,
which is the nice thing.
right, that's a good
So
thing,
if-
yeah,
If we feel the services aren't,
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
So it's an on-call service with not predefined rates?
no, they have, it's predefined rates. It's just, we don't have a contract.
We're not
We don't have a
locked in.
1 year or 2 year
Oh,
contract or
gotcha.
anything like that.
So it's just a pure on-call? with no limitation. I got you, okay.
I mean, we hope we don't have to switch attorneys like every quarter, but.
Yes, that would be
Right. But if we
nice.
weren't happy, we could.
But if this did not go well,
Right.
I'd say we keep it at where it is, and if we have to find money elsewhere, we do that.
I am inclined to agree at this point. If there's nothing about it, well, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of unknowns. If there's nothing, raising attention and ire at this point in time, I think action on our part might be a bit premature.
Yeah, I think the reality too is that, with any given, say, lawsuit or anything that has to be defended against, it's not gonna all occur in 1 year,
True.
right? So it would more likely be spread out over years, so it might be 30,000 this year.
Yeah, that's
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Any other items within the budget in itself before we start considering maybe the other items and their impact on the budget?
No.
So then getting back to Mike's original question of what does that 120,000 and that 10,000 mean? If we are to recommend either one of those, for the reasons that Selectman Moran clarified, that there is increased stipulation and focus on,
Stevenson?
how am I gonna forget the road name? Stevens Hill Road, thank you. If there's increased focus and attention on Stevens Hill Road that's desired, then an adjustment would be warranted. And if there's a desire to vote to recommend Article, which one is that, 22, for $10,000, that adjustments would be required for the board's ability to vote to recommend that.
By matter of opinion, I like that the Board of Selectmen has the ability to direct funds as they see, like, the most prudent and best use. They've proved themselves reliable over and over, so
Yeah.
I prefer that much more than to, citizens. I'm not opposed to people, petitioning for warrant articles, but I like that the board has,
Yeah.
more ability to move those funds as they see fit.
I would agree, and to back up and kind of highlight that point, to Selectman Moran's point, if two roads blow out because of a flood, now we can't fix one and we have to go fix Stevens Hill, and I feel like now we're just looking foolish. We're pigeonholing ourselves with an unknown. I think with the article written as is, I think it shows that that is the intent on Article
20?
whichever number we're at,
11.
11.
Oh,
thank
11,
you.
sorry.
I think that is the intent of Article 11, to focus on those roads, but I think to shoehorn ourselves in to a particular road, I don't think is wise going forward when there's always unknowns.
Right.
Agreed.
Okay, so I think then, it sounds like the board, and Jill, do you have anything on that?
I don't, I'm in agreement.
Okay, thank you, Jill. For the record, Jill said she was in agreement. To that end, I think that answers the Article 20 question. And I think it sounds pretty certain that we would vote to not recommend this as a board. So then the other question would be Article 22, the 10,000 for the newsletter. I will say, at least I'm quite certain we have the petitioner who wrote this. So we can ask any questions if folks may have them. However,
I'm caught between a rock and a hard place.
I fully understand. I was kind of highlighting that without making you have to call yourself out.
It's okay, my shoulders are broad.
But I would say that I have actually heard some, which I'm a little more surprised in my circles, based on me having young children at this point, that people actually were still sort of interested in the newsletter and were asking me questions about it.
This is just a general overall question. Why are you guys voting on a petition article that's put in by a citizen? Shouldn't you be voting to recommend only the articles that are presented to you from the town?
John, could you come up to the
Sorry,
mic?
that was just a general, it doesn't matter, you can just.
Flapping your wings there.
I'm just asking.
If they have a monetary impact, we should vote on them.
The concern, as I understand, John, is because that $10,000 if we vote to approve that, it would put us over the 4% limit that's allowable by law. All we have for wiggle room at this moment is $5,558. So that's why we need to figure this out, because if we approve those as a board, it's gonna put us over the 4% limit.
I think he was asking why we're voting on it at all, because it's a petition warrant article.
If we should just leave it alone. But Ellen, could you clarify that just on the record and just so the folks listening at home?
So as an official budget committee, you're required to put a recommendation on any warrant article that has a monetary value.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And would you like me to briefly speak
Yes.
on this for the public?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind.
that
Might
may-
say, Charlotte, if you, maybe it's not a big deal, but if you're speaking as public, we're gonna use that microphone, so that's,
Yep, that's
Okay.
fine.
No,
Yep.
I think
Yeah.
that's a
Make sure-
perfectly
Yes, that's-
reasonable
thank you, Mike.
distinction.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
that way you can speak as a public and not.
Charlotte Fife, 85 Deerfield Road, and I'm the petitioner for the warrant article to resume the community newsletter in print, asking for $10,000 to be put back into that line item. Last year, as one of the members of the public may remember, I was on board with dropping the amount for the community newsletter. I thought that we could do it online, that would be a good savings. And I've heard a lot of pushback since then that people want it in print and mailed to them. So after a lot of deliberation, because this would add, I believe it's a penny per thousand to the tax rate, we decided that we'd let the voters decide. So I wrote up the warrant article. We'll let the voters decide if they want to go forward with this and fund this community newsletter to be printed. It would still continue to be online as well, but if the voters feel that that's worth it, then we'll go ahead and print. And we have found a printer. That was one of our problems last year, that we ran out of money because a gentleman in town who'd been printing at a discount for years, I think since 1999, retired. So we have found a printer, a local printer, who's willing to give us a discount, so that would help. We'd be able to do that.
Excellent. Thank you, Charlotte. Appreciate
You know
the
the whole
additional
saga, right?
information.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So the $10,000, we talked about ad revenues.
Right.
So is the 10,000 based on assuming above and beyond that has been offset by the revenues, or that this would actually come in lower than $10,000?
That's right.
Based on revenues?
From past revenue, we would estimate $3,000 to $3,500 offsetting revenue, which goes, into, I don't know the exact term, general revenues. So you can't see it on that line item,
Yep.
but it wouldn't be more than 10,000. We think the 10,000 would do it, and in fact cost less than that. We hope.
I have a comment to that point, Owen.
Yes, Jill, you have a comment?
And perhaps this isn't the correct forum, but I wonder if the wording would be more appropriate to say to appropriate a sum of up to $10,000 rather than appropriate $10,000.
I don't know. We'll have to check with legal on that one, and since it's a petitioner, I think we would need to wait for a deliberative to change it. But it might be an interesting discussion at deliberative.
But I do think, even though there's,
We don't
so
spend
Jill, I think the $10,000 cost is the math that Charlotte and her team did of what it actually costs to produce those newsletters. The offsetting revenue, it's great to have it, but yeah, you have to estimate what
The
the
actual
gross
cost.
cost is going to be, not the net cost.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It does, but I guess I'm curious about if the warrant article says to appropriate $10,000, then it sounds to me that we have to appropriate $10,000 no matter what the actual cost ends up being. Like, if it only costs $7 or something, you still have to appropriate 10, and so we're left with that 3 kind of hanging when it could be diverted elsewhere, is the point I'm trying to make.
No, and that's, I think, maybe an interesting point, Jill, and I'll summarize quickly, just in case the mic doesn't pick it up, but basically the question is, if it doesn't cost exactly $10,000, are we left with additional funds that are unable to be allocated in other locations? I think it's a good discussion and question maybe to ask either Ellen to look into for us or ask legal. And then since it is a petitioner's, we'd have to change it at, if we do any verbiage changing, we got to do it at deliberative. So at least that gives us some time to
Yeah.
get some more answers before we can discuss it at the deliberative session.
Thank you.
Excellent,
Jill.
thank you.
Anything else?
So, back to that, I'd like to get a sense of the board, not a vote, as to whether the board is likely to entertain this or not, because if the answer is yes, we need to look at funding in other locations. If the answer is no, then we do not. Could I get a show of hands and a non-official vote for people that would be interested in supporting this if funds were diverted from another location?
I'll entertain it.
Yep.
Really?
So, and Jill, are you interested?
I'm supportive.
Yes, thank you. And Jill notes she's supportive, so I would say that probably more than less are supportive of this.
Supportive of the discussion.
Of the discussion, yes. So if that is the case, we need to find roughly $5,000. What would be the thought process for an additional $5,000, if not $10,000, to try to remain at the same percentage?
I think that would be the goal from my perspective.
So do folks have any thoughts, ideas, concepts?
I mean, there's some,
There's a
like
lot
we
of
really
holes.
did a lot of work on this. It's very tight, but, you know, I mean, some of the things that I had brought up last time that weren't favorable, and that's fine, you're all entitled to your opinions, right? I think the lake has some funding, that is repeated with warrant articles. I think there's extra funding in mowing that we could draw from.
Just to clarify though, the lake, that funding that's in
There's
the
two
budget.
different sources.
Two
Yeah.
separate, yeah.
One goes for the lake coast and the other goes for invasive
Right.
species, but,
Yeah, which, to your end, the concept you're saying could be to not support 15, Article 15, which is the invasive species.
we could do that.
Yeah,
Or we
okay,
could limit that,
yeah,
you know, and maybe leave 5,000 with the lake host and then 5,000 with invasive species.
yeah.
And there's 5K. We're mowing for the fields, the field mowing goes up every year.
Mhm. Jill, did you have a comment?
Yeah, it's just a little hard for me to toggle back and forth between the phone screens and the budget here. Where did we come in the road, the seal coating figure, was that at 35 instead of 30, or did we put it at 30?
No, the road seal coating figure came in at 30, and then the other item was an additional 8 added to the building maintenance. Am I remembering that correctly, everybody? Yes. So it was 30 for the road maintenance and 8 for the building were the changes we made at the last meeting.
Okay, I was hoping it was 35.
Yeah, kind of me too.
Can I just comment on the two lake-related ones?
Yep,
Because they're two different warrant articles, two different sources, they're two different purposes, right? The invasive species fund is more of, you know, having money available for that catastrophic event.
Mhm.
And it's not just for Pawtuckaway, it's for bodies of water in the town, right? So that's kind of like the bigger there's gonna be a catastrophe, the town is gonna be responsible for it, having that there. The lake host is for the year-to-year management of the program. And the town, this warrant article is just one of, I would say, 4 sources of funding for that program. The PLIA provides funding, the New Hampshire Lakes Association offers grants that are based on matching funds. So the amount of money we get from them depends on how much the town, the PLIA and volunteers put into it. And then there are also like individual donations for that specific program. So I just wanted to point out that those are two different things.
Yeah. Understood. Thank you for the clarification.
What about taking it from the assistant director's salary that we're pulling from revolving fund?
I was gonna go there.
I was waiting to see who got to it first.
I thought Jeff was gonna get there first.
I did too.
Or Mike.
Jeff, are you
I was
sleeping over there?
No, I was cold over.
I mean, honestly,
Put a target on your back.
So I believe, to your point, Karen, we increased that number by, does anybody recall?
We took
Thir-
75% of it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what the differential was. 14?
Something like that, yeah.
Wasn't that the number? Sorry, Joe, what did you say?
I think it was 12, right? 'Cause it-
Yeah.
Another, and this 50%, I think the number was 12.
Yeah, yeah. So to Jill's point, I think 12 to
we take 7.
13, something like that.
But it's kind of like if you get to the point where you're looking at that, then I would be in favor of just leaving the 100% there, rather than, making it so minute that we've got 3,000 that's here and the rest here.
But they have the revolving fund.
Well, no,
still.
100%. I'm still in favor of 100% of that salary coming out of the revolving
I
fund.
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that would free up money for this.
When you say 100%, do you mean back to the original 50-50 split?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, correct.
That's
Oh,
what I thought
so-
you meant.
Yeah, I was like having a heart attack.
No, I figured that's what you meant.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that is one place we can look.
I'd say you could pull off.
Can I ask just a
The revolving
procedural
fund.
question, Owen?
Yes,
I guess I want to better understand, for lack of a better way to phrase it, the point of this conversation.
yeah,
Because we don't know whether this warrant article will pass.
correct.
If it does, is it not ultimately kind of up to the Board of Selectmen to make these kinds of adjustments? Like, is our goal in this conversation to actually make material changes to the budget in anticipation that a warrant article will pass, not knowing whether or not it will?
So,
where
no,
are we
it's-
going with this?
It's a good procedural point and a good reminder for me to make. The Budget Committee cannot recommend a budget over 4%. If the Budget Committee recommends all of the warrants and the operating budget, in addition to this item, we would be over the 4%. So it's not a recommendation that we can actually make at this point in time. So that is the point of whether we would look at it or not. Now, whether it goes over the 4% is up to the voters, because the voters can change things in deliberative. They just can't increase it by more than 10% off the recommendation, but they can change things in deliberative, and then how the vote goes can change that 4% number. But it's that recommendation that we're held to as a budget committee. So that's what the point of it,
To the delivery.
to the
So
deliberative.
the exercise here is to understand whether we think another $10,000 is remotely possible enough for us to feel comfortable recommending a warrant article, not for us to necessarily make material changes to the budget that we're presenting.
It does, 'cause we
No, it does make a material change if we are recommending that $10,000, because then that recommendation becomes part of our budget that we're recommending.
puts us over the 4.
Puts us over the 4, so it would be a material change.
And
So-
so what happens if then the warrant article didn't pass? Now we've changed a budget, that didn't need to be changed.
Correct.
Yep.
But the recommendation, and also to that end, the town can vote for the default budget, not the proposed budget, and then we'd be back to 0%. So it is up to the voters ultimately, but we just have to focus on our recommendation being at under 4% or less.
The other scenario is that we don't recommend it, but it's still a warrant article that's going
Right.
before,
Yes,
and
Which-
people can still vote in favor
Which
of
I
it.
would,
And that's why I
which
wasn't.
is a very good point.
That's why I
Told you
wasn't
I'm
going to
caught
support
between
it,
a rock
let
and a
the
hard
voters
place.
decide.
Got it, okay, no, that's an
yeah.
excellent
And then see if the
point.
voters really
I'd rather
want
do
it, because
that.
honestly,
You're
we
right, I
got
didn't
rid of
present that
it
as an option,
for
so thank
budgetary
you for-
reasons, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that's
So
why we
the-
decreased it.
Yeah,
so.
that's a good point, so I do appreciate bringing that alternative thought process, I hadn't got there yet. My linear thinking
And
gets
that,
me
I
in
mean,
trouble.
that's even a point that we can make at the deliberative session.
Yep,
We
Yeah.
can say, look, you know, the members of the budget committee see the value in this, but.
And I'm sure they'll, you
we
know,
didn't see
we'll
the
be
value
prepared
of
to
it enough
speak
to
towards it,
supplant
yeah.
other items within the budget to allow for the recommendation.
Yep.
Yep, no, understood.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah,
good point, too.
Yes, I think that's, yeah.
Charlotte puts on her budget committee hat.
It's like,
puts on her
which
disciplinary
side? Well, you know, it's what people want, right? That's what we're here for, yeah.
That's right. Named?
100%.
That's an interesting question. So, just to address something that's coming up purely for a timing reason, Tim had actually emailed me earlier in the day. He's got to get home 8:45 because of, again, like everybody else, sick everyone in the household and juggling schedules and all of that. So, best of luck going back to that.
Oh, yeah.
Germ factory.
Sure you don't wanna see
To that end.
We have a guest
I
room.
don't know if we technically have a alternate to the Board of Selectmen named, or if we're required to have an alternate, or if an alternate Board of Select member can sit in for Tim if he's excused.
It
Go ahead.
doesn't have to be a name.
Blink, blink.
It doesn't? It can
does
be
not have to
anybody?
be a name, it could be anyone.
Okay, so is that something that just anybody from the Board of Select can volunteer for the meeting to?
Yeah, because he could ask anyone to back him up if he can't be here.
Okay, perfect. So,
Just,
for the fun of everybody who can't see, there's two Board of Selectmen sitting in the audience pointing fingers at
Rock,
each
paper,
other.
scissors, now.
So, thank you, Tim, for your time. I
Thanks a lot,
appreciate
Tim.
you
Thanks, Tim.
being
Good
here
luck.
as much as you could. Best of luck to
Good luck.
you and the family. And
I mean,
we
they-
still have a quorum without, so we can still take the votes as necessary. So if a Board of Selectmen would like to come up, they are more than welcome, and we would absolutely welcome their contributions. If they are not comfortable at this time with that, based on not being on the board, then we're also happy to continue with the quorum we have.
Come on, guys. Come on, come on, come on.
Want my opinion, but here it is.
I didn't ask for it yet.
we didn't ask
I said
that.
I want it. I just want to vote. No, I'm
Mr.
kidding.
Chair, could we have Steve instead?
So, procedural point of order, Select Chair John Moran will be joining us for the remainder, and voting instead of Tim DeBrio, who unfortunately had to leave early due to other commitments. So, back to the question.
Seems like we squeezed the budget as much as we're gonna be.
I
able to squeeze
I
it.
think so, yeah.
kind of feel the same, and I also didn't have the thought process of not recommending with the point of letting the voters try to make the decision and leave it up to them, which
Fair enough.
I actually kind of like more, because I think that it gives the voters a voice better than us trying to make assumptions about maybe other line items. So I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
Comfortable with that.
Moving on.
I don't think it would be wise to cut the budget in order to put a
Right.
newsletter in
Right.
for $10,000, where there are 5 sources, not saying the Facebook sources are reliable by any means, but there's a town website, there's 2 blogs going. Information nowadays is way more rampant, whether all true or not,
That's right,
than the
yeah.
newsletter, which is not even up to date time wise, because when it comes out, half the stuff has already been passed or gone by. That $10,000 in the budget where we are is better spent keeping in what we have for line items now than to be bothered taking it out.
Yeah.
And you'll probably hear that at deliberation too.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be, again,
I don't necessarily disagree,
disagree
and I
with you.
appreciate the point. By don't necessarily, I mean I do agree. I feel like we were, this budget cycle, we were trying to pull blood from a stone to see if we
Yeah,
could
it was
get
hard to
enough
get where we were,
to
yeah.
crack seal some streets, you know, and
Yep.
throw a little bit of extra at a building or two in town. So I do.
Agree. We'll see how
Great.
passionate people are about paper.
Yeah, you know what, and I think that's a great point, and I think that really will speak volumes as to whether that really is a thing, and if it is, then that can be incorporated going forward, if that's what the voters decide. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I do too.
I agree.
So with that, That would solve the altering the primary budget discussion unless other folks have anything else they want to discuss at this point.
I'd still like to know the max and the minimum and the history on the rec revolving.
We can get that at some point. Ellen, would you mind adding that to the to-do list for you, especially probably in front of deliberative? Because that would be most likely where this discussion will come up again, I would think. If there are no other items, I think we can go through and vote for article recommendations. So in that, I will try to see if I can possibly say all of this without becoming tongue-tied. And Jill, I'll be listening for your vote while we're calling this out and trying to keep you included on it. For the sake of procedure, do I need to read these all out?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought I
I
did.
can go every other
Can
one.
you-
I thank you.
Didn't we all
Yes.
take turns?
You're
last
getting-
year
Yeah.
reading it? Yeah.
We did.
Let's take turns.
I was trying to remember and I was trying to weasel my way out of it, if you can't tell. I'll start with number 7.
We could tell.
Article 7, shall the town raise and appropriate an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amount set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by the vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein, totaling $5,057,788. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $4,878,584, which is the same as last year with certain adjustments required by previous actions of the town or by law, or the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, Roman numerals 10 and 16, to take up the issue of a revised operating budget only. The Board of Selectmen has not made recommendations at this time. The Budget Committee recommends this appropriation going forward, as we will soon vote. The estimated tax impact is $3.06 per thousand of property valuation. All those in favor,
We probably need a motion.
I would entertain a motion.
I will make a motion that we approve Article 7 as read.
I will second it.
Motion by Donna, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And Jillian was an aye.
And Jillian was an aye. 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 ayes. All those opposed? 2.
Not, you're not voting?
I will abstain from all the votes since I will be voting as a selectman during our meetings.
1 abstention. This is gonna look
You
funny.
don't have to do that.
I understand it,
All right, okay. So it was 5 and 2?
2, 3, 4, 5, 2, 1. So, Budget Committee recommends the budget as read by a vote of 5 to 2 to 1. You gonna save me on Article 8?
Yeah, I'll read this. For clarity,
Mhm.
would it make more sense if we didn't have an abstention? I don't know.
Yeah, if he's just gonna abstain on all of them.
Yeah, I don't think you need to put that I'm abstaining from it, because I'm actually not, the Board of Selectmen is not I mean, we're representing the board at these meetings, but I wouldn't say that we're not voted in by the town residents as a member of the public.
Historically,
Right.
they have.
Historically, you've gotten a vote, however, I understand the point, and the abstention is going to read like somebody who's been on the board is doing it. So I think that maybe we make the clarification that
Well, forget-
John is
then I'll
here.
just vote for it.
Or,
We can, I'm not gonna have it,
This happened
or
last year.
John just leaves the.
Or John could,
yeah.
John-
I'd rather
That's
leave
my
the meeting
question.
and I'd rather leave the meeting and not have a vote, have my vote represented during my selectmen's meeting.
Yep, no, I think that's absolutely fine. I fully understand. If you,
Well, there anything else you need me for tonight, or
It
can I
was
go
nice
home?
having you,
thank you
John.
very much, John.
thank you, John.
Guys, appreciate it.
I'll make a motion that we have a re-vote on
Yeah.
Article 7.
Second
I
that?
see a motion by Donna, second by
Second.
Charlotte. All those in favor of a revote? Aye.
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 Revote is unanimous. I will entertain a motion to vote as previously read.
I'll make a motion that we approve Article 7 as previously read.
And I will second it.
Motion by Donna, second by Karen. All those in favor? Aye. With Jillian is 5, opposed, 2. The vote is 5 to 2, recommending 4.
Article number 8, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $45,000 for the purpose of purchasing the necessary fuel, supplies, equipment, and maintenance to run the ambulance and billing services for 2025, and to authorize the withdrawal of $45,000 from the ambulance and equipment replacement special reserve fund created for this purpose. Majority vote required. Select Board has not voted yet, and the Budget Committee will vote now.
Estimated tax impact is 0 per thousand. No worries, I'm getting there. I gotcha.
I'll make a motion that we approve Article 8 as read.
Motion to approve Article 8 as read by Donna.
Second that?
Second by Charlotte. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it as 7 to 0. Yeah, could you double check my math? Thank
I'm
you.
just making sure we get
I
Jillian in
did
there.
the exact same thing too.
Down
To
7.
2.
Article 9, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be added to the Fire Vehicle SCBA Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Majority vote required. Board of Selectmen recommends X to X. Budget Committee recommends X to X. Estimated tax impact is 0.036 per thousand of property valuation. So 3.6 cents per thousand of property valuation. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Article 9 as read.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Jeff. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed. Ayes have it, 7 to 0 for recommendation.
Article number 10, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the Police Technology Equipment Expendable Trust Fund previously established. Majority vote required. Select Board recommends this appropriation X to X. Budget Committee recommends this appropriation to be voted on. Estimated tax impact is 0.012 per 1,000 of property valuation.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Karen,
Second.
second by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Ayes have it, 7, oh, I suppose I should ask for oppose, even though it's 7-0. All those opposed? Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $285,000 for highway reconstruction and maintenance work on town roads to include, but not limited to, Lucas Pond Road, Stevens Hill Road, from sorry, I should have had this ready.
it's okay. Are they
From
gonna add it?
Deerfield Road to the existing pavement.
That's not what we have.
We just need to read as written.
Oh, I thought we can't change these now?
I think that happens in deliberative.
I thought we could change these warrant articles now, it was just not the petitions.
Well,
No, they could be changed, but it would have to be in.
But is it
another
in
meeting.
deliberative? Did I misunderstand that?
Yeah, the petitions can be changed at deliberative. These ones, the Board of Selectmen still hasn't even.
Yeah, this has to be read as written from.
Oh, right, because then, or can we, because if we recommend a change, then we'd have to re-vote on it, and so would the selectmen, so we would have to vote on it as modified, but the selectmen might not.
I'm opposed to changing it at all.
Yeah,
Wouldn't,
Wait for
I
wouldn't
think
we-
for procedural
Based
sake,
on
I
our
think you're right.
conversation, request that the select board rewrite it, and then it comes back to us,
Yeah.
from what I
but-
understand.
So I have the same concern that we mentioned before, like if we start trying to incorporate some of what was in that other one into this one, we're again tying the hands of the highway department. If you start saying, we're talking about
Yeah.
Stevens Hill from here to here,
Fair
then
point.
that's telling them specifically that's what they
Yeah.
have to do.
Maybe they find a better court
I
on
agree.
Stevens
I
Hill.
agree.
There's maybe like a
Yeah.
culvert washes out or something somewhere else
Yeah.
on Stevens Hill, so.
Right,
Yep,
exactly, yep.
I like it, Tom.
No, that's a good
Yeah.
point.
Um,
Okay,
another-
so-
just-
Leave it.
If I could interrupt, just another thing. Should we be concerned that we don't have the final language from the select board here? Because is there anything that could come that, you know, might seem innocent or might not seem like a significant change
If-
that we would look at and be like,
I would think if they adjusted anything, we would have to re-meet and re-vote,
well,
correct?
they're,
For the deliberate.
The only changes that I'm anticipating are just legal, if there's.
And that we don't need to re-vote on. I do know that, that's a specific
Okay.
exemption.
okay.
But we would still have to vote right now on as written.
As written.
So I need
As
to
read.
actually
Right.
reread it and read it correctly, or as written, I should say, and then we'll do a vote. Okay.
No, we're good.
Take number 12. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $285,000 for highway reconstruction and maintenance work on town roads to include, but not limited to, Lucas Pond Road, Stevens Hill Road, Deerfield Road, or other roads in Nottingham if a priority arises. This is a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 6, and will not lapse until the work is complete or not later than 1 year after the end of fiscal year 2025, whichever occurs earlier. Majority vote required. Board of Selectmen have yet to recommend. Budget Committee will recommend. The estimated tax impact is 0.16 per thousand of property valuation. Entertain a motion as read.
I'll make a motion that we approve Article 11 as read.
Motion by Donna,
I second that.
second by Charlotte. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jill?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I wasn't sure if you were aye or opposed. All those opposed? One. So, motion to recommend, 6 to 1.
Article number 12, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $464,000 to purchase a new grader for the highway department and to authorize the withdrawal of $282,000 from the highway truck capital reserve fund established for this purpose. The balance of $182,000 to come from unassigned fund balance. Majority vote required. Select Board has not voted. Budget Committee will vote. There is no additional tax impact if this article passes.
I'll make a motion, we approve Article 12 as read.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? 7-0. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $70,000 to be added to the Highway Truck Capital Reserve Fund previously established. Majority vote required. Select Board is yet to recommend. Budget Committee will recommend. Estimated tax impact is 0.083 per 1,000 of property valuation.
Make a motion.
Oop, go ahead.
Make a motion to recommend Article 13 as read.
Motion by Mike,
Second.
second by Donna. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Jill, sorry, I didn't hear your vote.
Sorry, aye.
Thank you. 7-0.
Did I read yours?
Did we get out of order?
I think I might have.
Oh,
I'll read
well.
another one. Unless you want to.
I'll read Article 14. I think that's what we're on, right? To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $18,000 to be added to the town building maintenance and repair expendable trust fund previously established. Majority vote required. Board of Selectmen has yet to vote. Budget Committee will be voting. Estimated tax impact is 0.021 per 1,000 of property valuation. Although, I'll entertain a
I'll make a
motion.
motion, we approve Article 14 as read.
Motion by Donna, second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? No opposed. Passes 7-0 for recommendation.
Article 15, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 to be added to the invasive species prevention and eradication removal expendable trust fund previously established. Majority vote required. Select Board has not voted. Budget Committee will vote. The estimated tax impact is 0.012 per $1,000 property valuation.
I'll make a motion that we approve Article 15 as read.
Motion by Donna,
I will second that.
second by Charlotte. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? 2. Recommendation passes 5 to 2. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to hire a certified lake management engineering firm to study conditions, provide design solutions to reduce external and internal phosphorus loading, and implement any remediation projects to Pawtuckaway Lake. Further, to authorize the select board to negotiate, determine conditions, and enter into a loan agreement up to $100,000 through the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Clean Water State Revolving Fund for this purpose. Any interest on this loan will be paid in full by a donation from the Pawtuckaway Lake Improvement Association. It is expected that repayment of this loan will include 100% principal forgiveness per agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services Clean Water State Revolving Fund to eliminate the need for payment of loan principal through tax dollars. This is a non-lapsing article per RSA 32:7, Roman numeral 3, and will not lapse until the completion of the project. 3/5 ballot vote required. Board of Selectmen has yet to vote. Budget Committee is about to vote. Estimated tax impact is 0 per 1,000 of property valuation.
I make a motion that we approve Article 16 as read.
Motion by Donna,
Second.
second by Karen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-4. Opposed? 2 opposed. Motion for recommendation passes 5 to 2.
Article number 17, to see if the town will vote to approve.
This isn't one that we vote on.
Isn't it?
Correct?
Yep.
You are right. It does not, because it does not have a monetary implication.
Right. And we
Good
don't-
catch before we read it. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Don't on
Thank you.
18 and we don't on
On
19.
19, so we're gonna skip
Correct.
down
So
to
we will be down
Slipping right
to
along.
20.
Article 20. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $120,000 for highway reconstruction and maintenance on Stevens Hill Road from Deerfield Road to the existing pavement. This is a non-lapsing appropriation per RSA 32:7(6) and will not lapse until the work is complete or not later than 1 year after the end of the fiscal year 2025, whichever occurs first. By citizen petition, majority vote required, select board has not voted, budget committee will vote. The estimated tax impact is 0.0142 per thousand of property valuation.
I would entertain a motion to recommend.
So do we not want
Oh, to.
negative motions?
I believe you always vote to
Oh,
recommend,
recommend.
and then depending on how the vote is, that's how it's
Because we used
changed.
to sometimes
I
do a
don't think you do
negative.
negative.
So I'll make a motion that we recommend Article 20.
Motion by Donna,
I'll second the motion.
second by Mike. All those in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, so motion to recommend fails by a vote of 0 to 7.
Can we have a note on the, just the wording when it says the budget committee does not recommend this appropriation 0 to 7? It's just confusing when it's the other way
Yeah.
around.
Yes.
okay.
I think we did that one year, didn't we?
Yeah,
a
it's
good
confusing
idea.
when it reads the budget
Yep.
committee recommends 0 to
Yeah.
7.
Yep.
Yes, agreed.
Exactly.
Yep,
Okay, thank you.
good idea.
Article 21 does not have a impact. Article 22 does.
Does. Let me read it.
Sure, was it my read?
Shall the town vote to raise and
Damn it, I
appropriate
think
the
it was,
sum
sorry.
of $10,000 for the purpose of producing, printing, and mailing the volunteer community newsletter to Nottingham residents? The sum of this appropriation is to be offset by advertising revenues and donations received for this purpose. By citizen petition, majority vote required. Select Board has not voted. Budget Committee is about to vote. The estimated tax impact is 0.012 per 1,000 of property valuation.
Make a
What-
motion that we recommend Article 22.
Second.
Motion by Donna, second by Jeff. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Recommendation does not pass by a vote of 1 to 6. And we do not vote on Articles 23 or 24. Excellent work. With that, I would like to remind the committee that we have another meeting in just 2 days, where we get to do all of this all over again with a school budget.
Yay.
Yay!
And that is in this room, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Not the school.
Do we
Yep.
have minutes that we need to do?
We did, they didn't print them out because not everybody had time to review, they only came out this afternoon, so we decided we'd handle it at a later date. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second that.
Motion by Donna, second by Mike, all those in favor? Aye. Motion passes. Thank you, Jill, appreciate it.